If you simply try to tell the truth without caring twopence how often it's been told before, you will 9 times out of 10 become original without ever having noticed it. C.S. Lewis. Today I wanted to talk about the story within the story because I know how hard it can be sometimes when you're trying to come up with something original and feeling like it's kind of pointless because everybody else has already done it. Like in The Truman Show, where he wanted to be an explorer and she was trying to discourage him by saying, "It's too late, every land's already been discovered." That's how I feel sometimes about my stories and my books. But when I don't worry about that and I just enjoy coming up with these stories, they may seem familiar, but they're not 100% repeated from previous. In fact, you want that. I learned that from some sort of movie, is where you want it to sound familiar, but you don't want it, but you still want it to be completely new. So I feel like I found that a little bit with Thaddeus Weston Sneed, and I wanted to go into where the characters came from. So my stories are centered around a weasel who cannot seem to get anything right. He is trying to be sneaky, like weasels are supposed to be, and he's very bad at it. So this is a little bit based off of my own life at the time. I was in college, and maybe I'm still a little bit this way, but I just felt like there were certain things I kept trying that I just could not get right. And they would go fine, or they would all end well, just like in his stories, but I definitely needed all of the help and emotional support from stable characters like Thaddeus West, who is pretty much everybody's best friend and the friend that everybody needs sometimes. And they came from, I guess looks-wise, they came from people who were in my life at the time in classes. Just there, straight up, I knew a guy who was very energetic and just a little bit all over the place, doing well, but just still kind of, very, very energetic. And then there was another guy in my class that would sit right next to him that was very stable, and this is somewhat based off of his style as well. So it just kind of gave me the idea. But I definitely had other characters or people in my life that this is sort of a compilation of them. Sneed as well. I didn't even realize, if you read book 1, book 2 has Weezy, and Weezy is actually real. Weezy was a ferret of ours. I say ours, it was a roommate of mine at the time, and Weezy came up to her in our parking lot where I guess it was just abandoned in the neighborhood and needed a home. And so he came up and asked her, or asked us, and he became our pet for the house. And I totally had forgotten that his alter ego was Sneed because he used to try to steal things from us and hide them in little corners of the house. And so I didn't even realize where they came from. So the influence of your life is going to come across in your stories a little bit more than you realize until you actually stop to think about it. And so you can find inspiration everywhere, more than you even know. And I wanted to share today the story behind the story, because sometimes that is even my favorite part of a story. So next week I plan to talk about my why for writing and how to find your why for writing, because that is going to be what keeps you going. A book I wanted to recommend to all the writers out there is Bird by Bird. It is so helpful. It also pretty much says that you don't necessarily need the book, but you get so much information, and a lot about writing is mindset. That's pretty much a lot of things. But she talks about how you shouldn't worry about getting published. You should worry about writing. And then if you feel confident in what you've written, then you can worry about publishing, but just enjoy the process of writing. If you're thinking about it, it's possible. You can do it. And until then, have fun creating, and I'll see you next week.